All right, we're about to step aboard one of the most famous warships in history, the one and only HMS Victory. Now, this is so much more than just a ship. It's a literal floating fortress, a time capsule from an age of sail and cannons. And believe me, its story is absolutely incredible.
So let's set the scene. It's 1805. You've got this guy, Napoleon Bonaparte, the French emperor, who's just a force of nature, a military genius. He's got mainland Europe pretty much under his thumb. His armies just seem unstoppable, rolling from one victory to the next. The entire continent is basically his personal chessboard. But there was a catch. One huge area that Napoleon just could not crack. The sea. Out on the water, it was a whole different ballgame. Britain's Royal Navy was the undisputed champion, a massive blue wall standing in the way of his ambitions.
You see, Britain's whole strategy, its very survival, depended on its navy. They called their ships the wooden walls, and these ships did a lot more than just keep invaders out. They were how Britain projected its power all over the world. And, this is key, they controlled the sea lanes for trade, which meant they could choke off their enemies' economies while Britain's just kept getting stronger, bankrolling the whole war.
So, something had to give, right? And it did. In October of 1805, right off the coast of Spain, the Battle of Trafalgar. This wasn't just another fight. This was the fight, the one that would completely smash Napoleon's naval power for good and launch the HMS Victory into the history books forever. So what actually made this ship so special? Let's get into the nuts and bolts of this floating fortress. You have to remember, back in the 18th century, this was one of the most complex, high-tech machines anywhere on Earth. Okay, so the Victory was what's called a ship of the line, and that name tells you everything. These were the heavyweights, the battleships of their day. They were designed to sail in a straight line, one after another, and just unleash hell with coordinated broadsides. They really were floating gun batteries. And the cost to build one? I mean, just get this. To build the Victory, it took the wood from around 6,000 fully grown oak trees. Many of them were over a century old. That's almost 100 acres of ancient forest for just one ship. Just let that sink in.
And here's the thing, Trafalgar wasn't her first rodeo, not by a long shot. She was launched way back in 1765. She fought in the American War of Independence. She was the flagship in huge wins against the Spanish. By the time 1805 rolled around, she was already a 40-year-old veteran, a seasoned pro.
Now look at all that rope. That's the ship's engine. We're talking 26 miles of it. And it's basically split into two types. You've got the standing rigging, which is like the ship's skeleton. It just holds the massive masts up and keeps everything strong. Then you have the running rigging. That's the muscle. That's what the crew pulls and heaves on to control the sails and actually make the ship go.
But a ship isn't just wood and rope, is it? It's about the people. And the Victory wasn't just a war machine. It was a home. It was basically a floating, self-sufficient city with a population of over 800 men and boys, and every single one of them had a job to do.
So who were these 820 people at Trafalgar? Well, as you can see, the vast majority, nearly 2/3, were just regular seamen. But then you had all these other groups, Royal Marines acting as soldiers and police, a whole team of specialists and craftsmen, a tiny group of officers at the top making the big decisions. And then, look at that. 4% were boys, some as young as 11 years old. Incredible.
And, man, life on board was a tale of two cities. Up top, you've got the Admiral's cabin, which was huge, full of windows and light, the command center for the entire fleet. But you go just a few feet down, below deck, and it's a completely different world. Dark, wet, crowded, and hundreds of men sleeping crammed into hammocks with only about 16 inches of space each.
So how do you organize the day for 800 people? It all came down to the ship's bell. It was relentless. The bell rang every half hour, marking the time. The day was split into watches. Once you heard 8 bells, your 4-hour shift was over, and the next watch would take over. It was nonstop 24/7, rain or shine.
So we've got the ship, the crew, the daily life. But let's be honest. This ship was built for one thing, and one thing only: combat. All of that engineering, all of those men, it was all to unleash a crushing, devastating broadside on the enemy.
But what was that actually like? I mean, really. Forget the heroic paintings and movies. The reality of a battle on a ship like the Victory was just terrifying. It was a complete assault on your senses. Deafening noise, choking smoke, the smell of gunpowder and sweat. Just total chaos.
And at the heart of that chaos was the gun drill. A really good British crew could fire one of these giant 32-pounder cannons in just 90 seconds. That is insane when you think about it. It was this brutal, perfectly synchronized dance where a dozen men had to clean, load, and fire a 4-ton weapon in a tiny, smoke-filled space, all while the ship is pitching and rolling underneath them.
And they didn't just fire regular cannonballs. Oh no, they had a whole toolbox of ammunition. Round shot was your classic hull smasher. Grape shot basically turned the cannon into a giant, horrifying shotgun to sweep the enemy's decks. And chain shot? That was 2 cannonballs chained together, designed to just shred sails and rigging to pieces.
Now here's a really grim and surprising fact. The biggest killer in these battles wasn't getting hit by an enemy cannonball. Nope, it was a cannonball hitting your own ship. That iron ball would slam into the oak hull and cause it to explode inwards, sending thousands of razor-sharp wooden splinters flying across the deck like daggers. The ship itself became a weapon against its own crew.
So, after the Napoleonic Wars end, the age of sail starts to fade away. Steam power comes along. So what happens to these old wooden giants? Well, most were just broken up for scrap. But not the Victory. She was too important. She was saved.
And this quote really says it all, doesn't it? She's a direct link, a physical connection to a world that just doesn't exist anymore. An entire era of warfare and global power that was run on nothing but wind, wood, and sheer human will.
And maybe the most amazing part of her whole story is that she's still here. You can go and walk her decks right now. She's resting in a dry dock in Portsmouth, England. She's the world's oldest warship still in commission, and she's a living, breathing museum. So all of this leaves you with a pretty big question. When you look at this incredible ship, what are you really seeing? Is it just a symbol of empire and military might? Or is it something more personal? A monument to the 820 individual men and boys who lived and worked and fought inside those wooden walls? Maybe, just maybe, it's both.